Marvel Studios' desperation continues as they reportedly are considering bringing Chris Evans back into the fold, much like they did Robert Downey Jr. My only question is Chris Evans being hired for a role that doesn't suit him either? Is it possible that Marvel Studios has finally recast T'Challa? Let's discuss.
Our content sucks. Our content sucks.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
What have I been saying since Spider-Man No Way Home? Marvel Studios is in panic mode because they tried to push new characters and nobody gave a shit. So what they're going to do is try to replicate that No Way Home formula and bank on nostalgia. They are going to lean on actors and characters from the past because they know that they can't come up with anything better.
Oh no! We suck again!
Phase 4 was a complete and utter failure as it pertains to maintaining interest in the MCU. So what has happened since then? Well, Deadpool and Wolverine made like $1 gajillion, being the most obvious example of cameo porn I've ever seen in my life. They also announced the return of Robert Downey Jr., but just to make it not too obvious what they are doing, they decided to cast him as Dr. Doom instead of Tony Stark. All of this an obvious attempt to use gimmicks just to sell tickets. And now it appears that this trend is continuing with Chris Evans. It was only a matter of time before they begged him to come back as well. Chris Evans has reportedly been cast in Avengers Doomsday alongside Robert Downey Jr. And according to the Wrap, it's unknown which role he is going to be playing.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. And I want to have them answered immediately.
Now, before I get into any kind of speculation or opinions, I need to point out that Marvel has now officially ruined one of the only good things that they've done in the past 5 years. Endgame is not a good movie, but they did manage to give both Tony Stark and Steve Rogers proper send-offs in that film. It was actually such a good send-off that it made me feel something after having not been invested in the MCU for years prior to that. Now, I know that the old saying goes that nobody stays dead in comics forever. But for me personally, when you're talking about movies, it's a much different animal. You see, they managed to retire these two characters and these two actors from the MCU, and they both got out relatively unscathed. Tony Stark and Steve Rogers were spared the embarrassment of being in modern MCU films. Films that most likely would have ruined their characters at the expense of new characters.
Something very familiar about all this.
Now, you could say that they're going to be doing just that anyway, with the likes of Ironheart and Sam Wilson. But the truth is that Steve and Tony were mostly protected by their characters reaching the end of their arc. Now, bringing these two actors back into the MCU in different roles doesn't necessarily undo that, because at the end of the day, we will have to see how all of this plays out before we can make a final judgment. But I think it does taint their exit just a little bit, because them coming back gives you the impression that they're only really coming back for another paycheck, and that they're only coming back to sell more tickets. The real question is, and will always be, do they have great stories in place to justify their returns and make it worthwhile? Considering Marvel's recent track record, I'm skeptical, because great stories has not been their forte lately.
Why are you the way that you are?
So the question is, who will Chris Evans be playing in Avengers Doomsday? Well, the obvious answer is that he will be an alternate universe version of Cap that is an agent of Hydra. In that scenario, the two biggest heroes from the original Avengers team would now be villains in the new Avengers film. And I could see Marvel marketing this movie based on that alone. They're going to try to intrigue people on the idea of seeing these two actors on the other side of the conflict. And you know what? It's probably going to work on a lot of people, and there's a good chance that people are going to flock to this movie just to see that. The truth is that you could have a new Avengers team made up of heroes that nobody gives a shit about, and there's a good chance that people will still show up for this movie because of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. Marvel Studios may be lazy, they may be uncreative, but they are not stupid. At least not in this instance.
He's out of line. But he's right.
Now I know there's going to be some people who say, just wait for the movie, you haven't seen anything yet. Watch it all over this. If news and rumors are going to come out about these movies years in advance, then there's a good chance that I'm going to react to them. I mean, is this your first day on YouTube? Is it your first day on the planet? This is something that nerds have been doing since the beginning of time. Theories, speculation, skepticism, criticism, all of these things have been a part of these conversations for years. And let's face it, and I'll say this until I'm blue in the face because it's true, Marvel Studios has given us a laundry list of reasons to not trust their decisions.
That makes sense.
Now let's just say for a moment that this gimmick of bringing back actors from the past actually works, and it reinvigorates interest in the MCU. Let's even say that they find a way to bring these actors back and use them in a satisfying way. Okay, so you solved the problem for one movie, but is that success sustainable? Because at some point you're going to run out of people to bring back, and then you're going to be right back where you are right now. Directionless, because you can't build new characters, and you can't craft compelling stories. That's what makes this feel like a band-aid. Because going back and doing what worked before is not acknowledging your problems and addressing them. To me, how Marvel can achieve longevity at this point is they basically need to reinvent the wheel. Because the wheel that they keep using is a broken down piece of shit at this point, and eventually it's going to fall off if it hasn't already. I say this because I care. I say this because I want better movies. I don't want just theme park rides. I don't want to waste my time watching something that I'm going to forget about 5 seconds after I leave the theater. So all I'm going to say is, if in fact they intend to continue to do this, I hope they have a good plan. Because doing the same old shit isn't going to have the same impact forever.
Y'all be cool. Right on.